There we go. So, welcome, and we'll start off with a bracha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, melech haolam, asher kitshana b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
Go right into the text here. So here's where we are. I believe we're at verse 6. Vayomer el Moshe, he said to Moses, Ani chotencha Yitro, I, your father-in-law Jethro, pa elecha, come to you, ve'ishtecha u'shnei vaneha ima, and your wife and her two sons with her. And we may be reviewing here, but we'll do it quickly, I think. Vayomer el Moshe, he said to Moses, Al yadei shaliach. What Rashi is pointing out here is because it says Vayomer el Moshe, he said to Moses. So you might think that it was Jethro directly, but for whatever the reason is, this is not the suggestion. I'm not sure exactly what additional bit of information Rashi's giving us by telling us this.
I think because it says I am coming to you rather than I am here.
I think you nailed it, Lauren. Yes, that.
Yeah.
I mean,
mine says he sent word.
Yeah, but it says Vayomer, right?
I know, but I know. I think that's.
But the following pasuk says Vayetze Moshe likrat chot. No, so in other words, they're not together yet.
Those suggestions, right? I mean, because he could have, at least in my own mind, I could see him coming to Moses and saying, "I'm Jethro, your father-in-law." Although the other assumption is, why would he have to say it if he was in Jethro's presence? In Moses' presence, wouldn't Moses remember his father-in-law? Had it been such a long time that he didn't remember what his? So yeah.
Maybe he was far away, so he couldn't see him well. But then why would the messenger say I am? Why wouldn't just be he calling out from a distance because it's first person?
Right. Well, the first person is okay. The messenger could, it's understood that the messenger said, I'm coming to quote, this is what your father-in-law told me to tell you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that I'm remembering again my lesson with Aviva Zornberg, and she talks about this verse and the following verse showing us how important it was to Yitro to be treated with the respect that was due to him as a Kohen Midian, as a very high-level person.
Yes, lovely. Well, we'll certainly get to see that for sure. Yeah. So, Ani chotencha Yitro v'gomer, I, your father-in-law Jethro, etc. And from the Mechilta, im ein ata yotze begini, if you don't want to come out on my account, se begin ishtecha, come out on your wife's account. Ve'im ein ata yotze begin ishtecha, and if you don't come out on account of your wife, se begin b'shnei vaneha, come out on account of her two sons. Interesting the order, and perhaps the closeness of heart, and the emotional connection as to why he would have said it in this particular order.
And are her two sons his two sons as well?
Yes, they are, but that's okay. It's it's a manner of speaking, and of course, remember Moses had sent the three of them back to Midian, so she had been taking care of them. So I think it's a way of, acknowledging the care that she had been giving to his two sons. Vayetze Moshe likrat chotno. This is again underscoring, Shirabeth, what Aviva Zornberg was teaching you. Moses went out to meet his father-in-law. Vayishtachu vayishaklo, and he bowed down to him, and he kissed him. Vayishalu ish l're'ehu l'shalom, and they said to each other, each other inquired of their welfare. Vayavohu ha'ohela, and they came into the tent. Vayetze Moshe. Kavod gadol mitkabed Yitro ba'ota sha'a. A great honor. Jethro was honored with tremendous honor, be'ota sha'a, at that moment. Kevan shiatza Moshe, because if Moses was going out, if Moses went out to greet him, Yatza Aharon, Aaron would go out, Nadav Avihu, and Nadav and Avihu, Umihu Shera'a et Elu Yotzim Velo Yatza. And who could there possibly have been who saw these four people going out to meet Jethro and not go out themselves? That's how, to the degree to which Jethro was being honored at that moment. Vayishtachu vayishaklo, and he bowed down to him and he kissed him. Eni yodea mi hishtachave lemi. I don't know, I can't, from this alone, I can't infer who was bowing down to who. Keshu Omer, however, when it says ish lere'ehu, a man to his fellow, mi hakarui ish, who is the one who's referred to as ish, the man? Zeh Moshe, that would be Moses. Shene'emar v'ha'ish Moshe, because there's a pasuk that says, and the man Moses. Moses the man. And so again, you have to sort of infer the honor that Moses was paying his father-in-law, which is in some ways a very touching thought, that he would show such respect. Let's go on, let's see if, okay. Vaysaper Moshe lechotno, Moses recounted to his father-in-law, et kol asher asa Hashem lefaro, all that Hashem had done to Pharaoh, uleMitzrayim, and to Egypt, al odot Yisrael, on account of Israel, for the sake of Israel, et kol hatla'ah, all the troubles, all the problems, asher matza'atam baderech, which they had befallen them on the way, vayatzilem Hashem, and from which God had rescued them. So all these challenges. Vaysaper Moshe lechotno, Moses recounted to his father-in-law. Limshoch et libo, and the reason Moses was doing this, so this always, right, this, and analyzing this desire to question what each pasuk, all, to try and milk each pasuk for its deeper meanings. So this was in order to draw his heart lekarvo leTorah, to draw him close to Torah. It called. Say that again.
He's proselytizing.
Yeah, he is. But again, doing it in this particular way, it wasn't a forced conversion here. But
at this time too, when all those miracles just happened, so something to be excited about. Yes,
indeed. And of course, Jethro had asked him, how are things? Well, Moses was telling him. At kol hatla'ah, all the challenges, all the problems, etc., all the hurdles, shel hayam. So what are they specifically? Again, the Mechilta doesn't want to leave it as generalities. Be specific. So we know that crossing the Red Sea, when they were between the Egyptians and the sea, that was certainly one challenge or hurdle. Veshel Amalek, and also Amalek, the battle against Amalek. Hatla'ah. So Rashi is going to give us a little bit of a grammar lesson here. This word tla'ah. Lamed aleph min hayesod. So the taf is not part of the root of the word, but the lamed and the aleph are part of the root of the word. Shel teva, of the word, v'hatav, and the tav, hu tikun, it is a grammatical construct. V'yesod hanofel mimenu leprakim, and it's a grammatical construct, but it's also part of the root. It's one of these, it functions both as a grammatical construct, but also as part of the root, okay, part of the essence of the word. And sometimes it's such that it at times gets dropped when the word is used in different ways. So he says, and likewise, truma, tnufa, tkuma, those are all examples, and tnuah. These are all similar kinds of words where the taf both functions as a, what it's doing is it's taking a verb and making a noun out of it. Okay, so we know about verbal nouns. So the taf functions both as a construct to let us know that that it's a noun, but it also is part of the root of the word as well. So it's just an unusual construction, and Rashi wants us to get into that and understand that a little bit. Onwards. So truma would be a heave offering, an offering that you lift up. Tnufa would be a wave offering. Tukuma would be lakum from kum, okay, to get up. And to notice these have vavs in the middle of the words, of the roots. So tnuah would be motion, movement. Vayichad Yitro, Jacob rejoiced, al kol hatovah, regarding all the goodness, asher hasa Hashem.
Jethro.
What did I say?
Jacob.
Oh, sorry. Okay, you're paying attention. Thank you. Jethro rejoiced regarding all the goodness, asher asa Hashem liYisrael, which the Lord had performed for the Israelites. Asher hitzilo miyad Mitzrayim, and that God had rescued them from the power, from the hand, literally, of Egypt. So, Vayichad Yitro, Jacob, I keep saying Jacob, Jethro rejoiced. So, thus, Vayichad is not such a common word. So, Rashi is helping us translate that word and understand that word. But again, the fact that the Torah chooses that word is something that jumps out. Vayismach Yitro, it means Jethro rejoiced. Zehu pshuto, that's the plain and simple meaning of this verse. Umidrash agada, but there are also agadic interpretations. Ne'esa besaro chidudin. His flesh became prickly. He was disturbed, perhaps, emotionally touched in some way. Miyatzer al ibud Mitzrayim. He either this, I may be reading this wrongly, but the point of this is that he had tsar, right? He was upset. It made him sad regarding the loss of Egypt, right? How Egypt had perished. Hainu de Amri Imshi, and this is the basis of a folk saying, as people say. De Amri Imshi is Aramaic, which means people say. Here we go. Giora, a proselyte. Ad asara dare, for at least 10 generations. Lo tivze arma'a ba'ape, do not mock, do not scorn an Aramean in his presence. So it's, again, this doesn't come at the top of the PC list, but at least it's saying, you need to be careful. If somebody chooses to become Jewish and associate with the children of Israel, you still want to be careful what you say in their presence. So it actually could be a sensitive statement and saying, you need to keep in mind, people have histories, and saying things that are insensitive like that it's going to make them feel bad. It's going to affect them. So you have to be careful. Al kol hatovah, regarding all the goodness, Tova, what goodness are we talking about? Rashi's being specific here. Tovat Haman, the goodness of the manna, Uvahaba'er, and the well. I believe he's talking about the Miriam's well, Vahatorah, and the Torah. And the Torah, of course, again, always assuming that this passage is referring to something that actually took place after Mount Sinai. V'al kulan, and regarding all of them, or above all of them, asher hitzilo miyad Mitzrayim, that God had rescued them from the power of Egypt. Ad achshav, to this point, lo haya eved yachol livrach. It was impossible for a slave to flee, to escape. Mimitzrayim, from Egypt. Shahaita haaretz mesugeret, because it was closed up. The land was closed up. The Elu, and these yatsu shishim revo, and here 600,000 had escaped. Again, the Mechilta. Okay, we've taken care of that. Onwards. Vayomer Yitro, Jethro said, Baruch Hashem, blessed is Hashem, Asher hitzil etchem miyad Mitzrayim, who rescued you from the power of Egypt, umiyad Paro, and from Pharaoh's power. Asher hitzil et ha'am, in that he had rescued the people, mitachat yad Mitzrayim, from under the control of Egypt. Asher hitzil etchem miyad Mitzrayim, who rescued you from the control of Egypt. So the question here is, why the repetition? Why the three specific expressions? So he says the reason he mentions Egypt, Uma Kasha, a very strong, powerful nation. Umiyad Paro, and from Pharaoh's control, Melech Kasher, a powerful monarch. Mitachat Yad Mitzrayim, Ketargumo. So this Yad Mitzrayim, as the Targum says, Lashon Ridui Umarut Hayad, has to do with the subjugation and the authority of the hand, that is of their power. Shahayu mechabdim alehem, that they laid their burden, the burdens they laid upon the Israelites, hi ha'avadah, referring to their servitude. So it wasn't just a question of escaping, it's also rescuing them from the servitude with which the Israelites had served the Egyptians. Ata yadati, now I know, now I recognize, Ki gadol Hashem mikol ha'elohim, that Hashem is greater than all other gods. Ki vadaver asher zadu alehem. For in the matter, this is like a ... sentence. For in the matter which they intentionally, how can I put it? They intentionally tried to hurt them, to control them, to cause them to perish, that they intended to do.
Perpetrated.
Sorry?
Perpetrated.
Yes, that would be good. Zadon has the meaning of intentional, that they intended to do. Regarding, okay.
JPS says schemes.
Say that again.
JPS says schemes.
I like that word. That's what I was thinking, because here it says plotted, but schemed is better.
Okay, so the way we could translate this, for in the matter which they were scheming to do to them, or were plotting to do to them. But we know that there are three types of sins. There are three ways in which we can, in sort of in the general thought behind it, regarding the three intentions. And that's why on Yom Kippur we mention, right? we mention bezadon uvishgaga. So there's a sin out of ignorance, right, which can operate in two ways. You didn't know it was wrong to do at all. You didn't know that specific thing was wrong to do. You can do it intentionally, and you can also do it lahachis, out of rebellion. So there's unintentional, there's intentional, and there's rebellion. That's three categories in terms of seriousness. And zadon is got to do with intentional. You know it's wrong and you intend to do it wrong. You intend to do it nevertheless. Mean-spirited, etc. Here we go. Ata yadati, now I know. Makiro, hayiti l'shavar, I recognized him, that is, I was aware of God's existence in the past. V'achshav, but now, b'yoter, I understand God's existence even more. I recognize God's presence, God's power, God's, the degree to which God relates to this world. Mikol Elohim, from all the gods. Melamed, this teaches us, Shahaya Makir Bechol Avodat Elilim, that Jethro was aware or recognized every kind of idol, Sheba Olam, in the world. So he was familiar with all kinds of idolatry. Shelo hiniach avodat elilim shelo avda, that he did not leave off idolatry. In other words, there wasn't any kind of idolatry that he had not worshipped. But now he was worshiping God. He tried everything. He was on a major religious, spiritual journey. Ki badavar asher zadu alahim, for in the matter which they plotted against, schemed against them. Ketargumo. So this is, again, Rashi is using the Targum as the basis of his interpretation. Bamayim, damu la'avdam, they intended to destroy them in the waters, when Pharaoh had said that every male baby should be cast into the Nile, basically drowned, right? Vahem nebdu bamayim, and they themselves perished in the water of the Red Sea. So in other words, the implication is divine justice. And there's a lot of that theme that plays around in the narratives of the Torah. So you look at Jacob's behavior with Esau and how he gets paid back. And especially when Laban says to him, after he tricks him into marrying Leah, he says, it's not our custom to honor the younger before the older. And that's, of course, what had happened back Jacob when Jacob tricked Esau.
It happens all through there.
Yes, it does.
That's all of Genesis. It's like, firstborn is not that big of a deal.
Mm-hmm. Well, I understand. And in some ways, I think the message there is that character is more important than where you are than placement genealogically.
Birth order, yeah.
Yeah.
But regardless, there's also a need for justice, that God is a God of justice. Asher Zadu, so which they schemed. So he's explaining Asher Hirshiu, that is to say, the degree to which they were acting wickedly. Rasha, a Rasha is a wicked person. Rabotenu Darshu, and our sages, our rabbis, interpreted it as Lashon Va. This is really cool. They take it from a different root, from the expression back in, speaking of Jacob, by the way, Genesis chapter 25, Vayazed Yaakov Nazid, okay, that from where it says Jacob was stewing pottage, he was making a stew, right? Bakadera asher bishlu, in the pot that they cooked, ba nitbashlu, they got cooked in the pot they were cooking. Right? So they got their just desserts if we look at the other end of the meal. So let's go on. Vayikach Yitro choten Moshe, and Jethro. Look how often he's referred to, right, as the father-in-law of Moses. Jethro, the father-in-law of Moses, took olah uzvachim. He took an olah and sacrifices leElohim, to God. Vayavo Aharon and Aaron v'chol ziknei Yisrael, and all the elders of Israel came le'echol lechem im choten Moshe, to eat bread, to break bread in with the father-in-law of Moses, lifnei ha'Elohim, before ha'Elohim. And this is, I think, just really a profound comment that they're going to make now, that Rashi's going to make. So we already had a reference to this before. We had a comment about this, in that we have this, Rashi's he's going to pass over this here. But remember, we said before Matan Torah, the only kinds of offerings that took place were olot, were whole offerings, where the entire animal was offered up. And it was only after Matan Torah that, in fact, they had things like shlamim and todot, where parts of the animal went up on the altar, and parts of the animal went to the priest who was offering it, and parts of the animal went to the family who had offered up the offering. That only happened after Matan Torah. So Rashi just points out that and they brought in this verse, Olah Uzvachim, and the two different sides were able to interpret it in ways that sort of fit their particular interpretation, for those who did not think this happened before Matan Torah. So Olah kemashma'a, it's as it implies. It's exactly what we talk about when we talk about an Olah. Shehi kula kalil. It's a whole offering. It's completely offered up on the altar. Zevachim, now look at this. Rashi translates it as shlamim, a shlamim offering, which is distributed the way I explained. And he's already talked about this earlier on, or it was maybe, it could have been Torah Tmima who was talking about this particular, because it's a sort of Torah Tmima kind of thing to look into these details and see apparent contradictions and then explain them. Vayavo Aharon v'gomer, Aaron came, etc. Moshe doesn't mention Moses, at least it doesn't mention Moses coming. Moshe heichan halach. Where did Moses go? V'halo hu sheyatza likrato. It was Moses who went out to greet Jethro. V'garam lo et kol hakavod, and he was the one who was responsible for all this honor being given to Jethro. Ella, however, the way we need to understand it, Shaya omed u'mishamesh lifnehem. He was acting as the waiter. He served them. He stood and served them. Lifnei Elohim. And so what does that add? It says before God. Well, God is present everywhere. What do we mean? What's this verse adding by saying before God? And here we go. Mikan. From this verse we learn. Shehanehene misuda shetalmidei chachamim misubamba. That one who enjoys a meal where there are scholars of Torah gathered around, Ke'ilu nehene miziv hashchina. It's as if he has enjoyed the presence, the divine presence. That sitting down for a meal, as you can see, we are referring to enjoying food, but enjoying food in the company of people who are discussing Torah, discussing words of, that refer to divine service. It's as if you're sitting in the presence of God. Beautiful. I think that's a beautiful thought. Because eating can be simply an animal, just as animals have to eat, we have to eat to survive. But enjoying a meal as being an opportunity to take something that we find so fundamentally satisfying and not just enjoying physical food, but also partaking of spiritual food at the same time is like an amazing moment as a human, for us as humans. And on that, I'm going to end today's lesson.
We finished the Aliyah.
Yeah.
Woohoo.
All right. So I'm going to stop the share and stop the recording and thank those who have joined us.